Yeah, this is your little temperature sensor here, and actually I took out the dipstick so I can work on it. And I showed where I made this little makeshift repair, and you know, I broke off when I was at night. I broke off the little end, that end right there, the blade. But I made a little repair so I can slide on another connector to it. And actually, I don't really need to change this, but I am going to. And got the fan belt, another fan belt, the Jayco. I didn't like that other belt because it had these notches on this side, and it was good for a long period of time. But when it got old, it seems like those notches wore down quickly. I don't know what it was. It might have been a Goodyear belt, man. I don't know. But anyway, this is going to be this brand, whatever it is. It's kind of weird because it's a half-inch size on this puppy, and it's a 12 millimeter on the one that's OEM. But we're going to use some Teflon tape on here, and you can see this connector was on there pretty solid. The gauge was working fine, and I thought I was going to have to. I got the little 1/4-inch drive. I thought I was going to have to tap this, put an open end on it, and tap it with a hammer, but nope, no problem, man. Simple Simon is all hell, man. Probably some water will come out. There it is. Actually, it looks like it has no Teflon tape on it, but before I screw this puppy in, the other one in, before I put the Teflon tape on it, I want to make sure this puppy threads in here right. Yep, that's cool. I don't need Teflon tape on it, but we're going to do it anyway. Oh, belated advice. You know what? I just remembered something, because you know what? This is a temperature sensor. You cannot put Teflon tape on a temperature sensor. You don't put it on there, because that's the resistor that, holy shit, I just remembered that, man, when I was talking about it. I said, wait a minute. So, you don't put that on a temperature sensor. You just screw it in the freaking thing. If it leaks a little bit, you put a little bit of pipe dope on it. Man, I'm glad I said that wrong when I was saying that out loud. I said, you wonder why it didn't work. Yeah, you don't put, yeah, it's like a pipe fitting. Yeah, it's tight enough. That ain't gonna leak. Yeah, man, I was like, wait a minute. So I can pull this thing off. So then this blade goes on there till next time I break it off. See, what I did was I put it was pitch black out, and I says, let me freaking, I'm so mad this thing freaking was loose, and I was like putting a freaking crowbar in there. Fucking, and I bent this blade off. Come on, spastic, can't get this stupid thing on here. Ugh, it's probably a bigger blade. God, jeez. Anyway, it's gonna go on there. But what I had, anyway, let me get that thing on there. Okay, so it was really easy to put the blade on, so I put the camera down, do a little electrical contact. But this is what I did with the old one when I broke it off. So you want to see, this is one of these type of connectors, and on the opposite side is the blade that would go into, the connector that's, on a wiring harness. That would have been a blade on the the water temperature sensor that I broke off. So here I broke it off, and I said, you can see it fits tight. You can see real close. There's a notch I cut in there. I don't know if this camera's focusing in on that really good, but there's a notch I cut in the end of it. So it actually, a lot of the sensors are like that. They don't have a blade. They have like a thing that slides over just like this. And anyway, so it fits on there nice and tight too. So this could actually have been a permanent repair, course, I can't do this at the same time. Well, it fits on there nice and tight. I gotta not hold the camera and stuff, but it fits on there really solid. There it is. Ugh. And that actually could have been a permanent repair, but it says, let me change this, and I'll keep this sucker as a spare inside the box. So, anyway, that's it. That's it. And actually, the tech tip is, man, I almost screwed up. Because, you know, I'm always so used to freaking putting that stuff on, like air hoses and, you know, anything, you know, you thread into something, you don't want it to leak. Like I did, like I put the Teflon tape back here. You know, I finally did that and stopped the leakage and stuff. There's no leakage on this. You don't do that on a sensor, a water temperature sensor, because there's a resistor in here and it grounds to the engine, and the way it's got to actually ground, so you can put a little bit of pipe sealant on it on a few of the threads if it leaks, but it shouldn't, because it's going in there nice and tapered. You do that, your sensor's gonna probably be somewhat, even if it works, you might be somewhat insulated, and what'll happen is your gauge will read too cold. You'll have a higher resistor. Actually, I'm going to tell you this. Actually, sometimes that's another way to fix your OEM gauges. You can stick a resistor. You could play around by sticking a resistor in this wire by the sensor. If your gauge is reading too hot, I believe that's how it is. I think the higher resistance, the colder it is, or the higher, I forgot which way it is. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's the higher resistance, the colder it is, I believe. But you can actually play around with the gauge if it's reading too high or too low. I forgot. You know what? I forgot, to tell you the truth. But that's a trick where I'm going to actually post it on this video which way it is, because you can actually put a resistor in the line. And yeah, that's it. Because if it's grounded out, I think the gauge goes all the way hot. I believe that's what it is. I believe that's what it is. It works just like the fuel gauge. Doing this from memory because I keep forgetting this stuff. So if you have you're reading too hot, you can add some resistance to it. That's it. If you're reading too cold, I forgot which way it is, to tell you the truth. I forgot which way it is. But that's one way you can play around with the OEM gauges, by changing, putting a resistor in this line. And sometimes it doesn't work because there's not good contact down here too. Your gauge could be off. So anyway, I'll post that on the video someplace in the notes up here, you know, which way it is, because I forgot, to tell you the truth. You know, I'm just kind of doing this right by the spur of the moment, but still useful information. Still useful information. And this puppy's going in the back with the other old belt. And a solar panel. And something else. I don't know what else can go wrong, but it seems to be a pretty solid Jeep. I just remembered what it was on the temperature sensor. If the wire is disconnected, you have infinite resistance, so the higher resistance. The wire's disconnected, the gauge will read dead cold. So if your gauge is reading too hot, you can add a little resistor to the end of it to bring it down colder if the gauge is inaccurate and it's reading too hot. If it's reading too low, it could be a bad sensor, or it may be the wire or the connector's got some corrosion on it or something where it's connected to the sensor, and you might want to clean that off, and maybe the gauge that'll help the gauge to read higher. If not, that's just how the damn gauge reads. I remembered it as soon as I shut the camera off. You know, sometimes I can't think of these things right off the top of my head because I'm kind of doing these impromptu, you know. So, but I do know my stuff. I do know it. So if the higher resistance, the colder it reads. If it reads too high, you can add a resistor. Try a 50 ohm resistor or something like that. It might be a good suggestion. And if the wire's disconnected, if you ground the wire, if the wire's disconnected, you read dead cold. If you ground the wire, it'll read full hot. That's how it works. There's no resistance then when you ground the wire or just touch it to something, you know, it's going to read full hot. That's the deal.